Welcome back to the Ego Actus reading series, Dramatic Voices. This is Laura. And folks, we have another great interview coming up. We've got Stephen and Alisa, our playwright and director for the next show on our list, Release, which goes live Tuesday, March 12th. If I could have my playwright and director say a quick hello and introduction.
Hello, I am Stephen Michaels.
And hello from me. I'm Alisa Matlovsky.
Perfect. I love the energy that we have. And I'd say it's time to dive right on in. And Stephen, I think I'll start off with you. What brought you into this lovely world that we call the theater? And what got you interested in playwriting, really?
Well, that goes back a long way. My first stage kiss, I guess, was in a play in high school, and that kind of brought me in. And when I was at Harvard, I was actually majoring in history and literature, but I was in plays, and I just got kidnapped by the theater and everything about it. I went to NYU as a directing in stage directing. I took a detour, but eventually came back to New York and studied with Lee Strasberg. I'm also an actor and very into that craft. I've taught acting for 20 years at all over New York City.
Mhm.
In the early 80s, through a company I was working with, I began to write plays, which I always knew I would do. And I worked with a very brilliant but difficult man who had been a protege of Strasberg's, who was really excellent at playwriting structure. So I got into the classical view of it, which I've been in ever since, and the problem of structuring a play so that it functions like a play. And I've had a couple of plays produced at that theater, and then later I joined the PDU, the Playwrights and Directors Unit of the Actors Studio. I kind of helped to manage that unit, but I've had 3 plays read there. I'm a lifelong student of the problem of what a play is and how it works.
That's great. It's always so good to hear the accomplishments of our playwrights and directors. Although this is the first time I have to say I've heard the word kidnapped related to getting into the industry, but I do love it. Lovingly
Well,
kidnapped.
when you get the bug, if you get the bug, you can't get rid of it. The thrill of particularly of acting, but also of just the whole theatrical thing. It just, art captures you, the creative idea, and once you're captured, you're never going to get away from it. If you get away from it, you only spend the rest of your life regretting that you're not still doing it. So that's what it is. It's a mysterious kind of thing.
Well said, and I definitely agree. I haven't been working professionally in the theater, but I can't see myself living life without the theater in it. So it's good to see that passion coming from you as well. Alisa, a similar question for you, but rather than just playwriting, what got you into directing? What got you into theater, this kind of life?
It's funny because Stephen used the word kidnapped, and I feel as though I was seduced in a very, very early age. I started acting when I was a little kid, and I was an actor all the way through high school and college. Um, then I left. I abandoned theater for the film industry, and I was in
Mm.
Hollywood for 872 years, give or take a year. And but I wasn't working in a creative capacity. So in the I guess 2004, I left Hollywood after having been there for a really long time and returned to theater. I always kept theater in my life, even when I was out in the film business. I always there was a theater out there, the Odyssey Theater in Los Angeles, that I used to do a lot of work at. So it's always been a part of my life. And then I came back east and got my MFA at an advanced age in theater. And I've been making theater ever since. I've moved from directing. I wouldn't say I've moved from directing, but I've incorporated
Mm.
creating theater from the ground up more and more. I have 3 pieces that I'm working on now, all very, very different, um, that I've been writing and developing, as well as continuing to direct new works.
Oh, I think that's great. And you said what, 872 in
It
Hollywood? I mean,
could
you
have
look
been
great.
873. I mean, I lost count somewhere in there.
I mean, you look great for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's all done with smoke and mirrors.
I think it's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, the both of you seem to have had a journey with theater where you immediately got drawn into it, whether it was kidnapped, seduced, you fell in love, you got bit by the bug, and then
Mhm.
you both took some time away from it, it seems, but the journey brings you right back. And I'm sure that Joan and Bruce and everyone at Ego Actors feel it, but I can say for certain that it's good to have you both back here and in for the reading series.
It's really interesting. I think that, Stephen just mentioned this. Once you're bitten by this bug, it never really leaves you. You can't.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, I think, the way people who are New Yorkers, no matter where they move, they still remain New Yorkers. It's with when you're in theater, it never leaves you. It's there, it's part of you, and you don't feel complete unless it's somehow part of your life in some way. You feel incomplete.
Well said, and from the both of you. I love hearing the passion, the journey, the introductions. I say now is the perfect time to go maybe a bit more specific into this play itself. And Stephen, this question is going to be directed for you, which was what was the process like creating this play? And if you had any inspirations for it, where did they come from?
I did indeed. I knew I had two very good friends in the early 80s up when I was living in Washington Heights before I moved down to the East Village and from there somewhere else. But and they were actually they were like new age fanatics. I mean, they were really into that
Mm.
world. Um, the uh, the man, it was a couple who was British and very articulate, very smart, very attractive, um, dumped his partner and moved in with someone who had a very large apartment downtown on Central Park West, overlooking the park on the 25th floor, like Greta's apartment, of course. And and he had written a book in which his previous partner figured. She came into the book and appeared. It was kind of a memoir about his travels. And of course, there was a publishing party, and he didn't invite her. He went, of course, with his new love, with whom he had moved in with. So I kind of took the bone. There was something about the fact that she was in the book and she didn't get invited to the publishing party, which
Mhm.
struck me as so cruel. It kind of it reverberated for me. So, but I didn't want to, so I took the basic story and put it in a different context and made him a novelist. And and the woman that he drops, an artist, a painter, and the woman that he moves in with, a psychoanalyst for other reasons. But so so that was the inspiration for the book. And once uh, I realized very early that it had to be about the release, about permit, and so the stakes had to be very high whether he could get this book published, because his whole career rides upon it, the validation of himself as an artist. So it's very, very high stakes because he's very driven and he's just got to succeed, like we all feel perhaps at times. And in the play, he's willing to sacrifice his former girlfriend in the way that it comes out.
High stakes for sure. Your description has had me already at the edge of my seat, and I can't imagine what it's like
Well, I hope
being there to see it
good.
and
I
to
hope you do.
experience it. Oh, yeah. I think that's incredible. And it's so interesting how, in the past interviews I've done with the other playwrights and directors, how real life, the things that you experience or hear or read about, how they can oddly enough serve as fantastic inspiration for the art we create.
Yeah, it's a funny thing about that because if you write from reality, I'm one of those people who writes from reality. My other
Mm,
two plays come directly from my experience, and I'm actually characters in them, but the problem with that is that reality doesn't unfold like a play. It's not like a play. It's very different. It has cross currents in every direction. It's very complicated. It's not just one thing happening. So if you write from reality, you have to somehow break out of it into the imagination. And I know writers who refuse to have anything to do with my own life. I'm just keeping it out, like Stella Adler would say about actors. Don't whatever you do, don't use your own experience. Um, but breaking away from it and getting out into the imaginative realm, so the characters can really transcend the models. And of course, that's what the play is about too, because Lawrence is maintaining that this is a character. I use you as a model, okay, but the character has transcended. And she's saying, no, 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 it's me, it's my life. You're exposing my life. I'll sue if you publish. So it's funny how art repeats life.
yeah, and finding that balance between, like you say, how we take that messiness and that complication from life and turn it into something that is maybe a bit more manageable, and not just for the audience, but for you when you write it.
That's the question of dramatic structure and really of story structure, which are almost the same thing, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's all laid out in Aristotle's Poetics, and all the dramaturgy since then has been kind of working around that same fundamental template, and why a story works if it follows certain laws, and why if it doesn't, it might not. So, yeah.
Wow, it's incredible. I'm gonna go on a slight tangent here with you, Alisa. I have a bit of a variation on the question, but I'm curious if you on the directing side have felt a similar um feeling, right? When you're directing, does real life sometimes affect what you do?
It's interesting because I was listening to Stephen, and we talk about heightened reality in theater, and the thing that I find so interesting is that at the same time that we are looking for that heightened reality, we are grounding, and this is, I think, especially true for actors, we're grounding our work in honest as we can, honest emotion and honest response and honest need and honest intention. So yes, as a director, I find that what what I return to often is, what is the reality of this? What is this character? If I'm working with actors, for example, as opposed to just working on staging. But even with the staging, it's like, how does the staging express what's going on emotionally in this scene? What the relationship is between these particular characters at this particular point. And it does come down to personal experience, to the degree that, you identify what an individual is experiencing or could be
Mhm.
experiencing at any one time. Does that make sense, what I've just said?
More than enough sense. And you've already begun to answer the second question that I had for you, which was, what is the process like when you direct? And I guess an additional question to that is, what have you learned from this experience in particular? Has there been anything new that you learned? I imagine for both of you, whenever you write something or direct something or act or do anything in the theater, it's never always the same experience. There's always something new to learn, something new to try, revelations, you name it. So I'm curious if you've seen that, Alisa, or felt it.
Well, one of the things that's been really great about working with Stephen is he's so open to discussion and exploration of what is happening in a scene, whether the scene is achieving what he wants it to, and so that's been a great experience, is to be able to actually go through the text and see where things work in one way, or if you made a different choice, how that leads to a different, how that leads to a different, in a different direction for the play. So that's been terrific. We have been working on the script. We haven't yet worked with the actors. Our rehearsal is coming up on Sunday, and I'm really excited about what they will be bringing, because each of them is going to be interpreting their character in a very specific way to that actor. And it'll be really fun to see how it all melds, how it all comes together. I think the thing is also about a play like this is that, and I am speaking out of turn a little bit for Stephen, but which is inappropriate. But the whole idea of, like, you take life, and then what is it about a situation that really resonates? And obviously, in this case, I would say that for Stephen, as he said, he was sort of surprised at what he felt was a cruel decision on the part of this friend of his. So there's something about that when you write a play, where you take the situation and you, again, you're elevating reality, but you're heightening it. What is the thematic underscoring of that situation? And I think that's one of the things that is really interesting about this piece. Like, what is Stephen saying with this piece about what he saw his friend do?
I love how you folks collaborate very well and clearly with each other, right? For my listeners, I haven't met these folks in person. It's been virtual. Um, it's been in a virtual landscape, but even then, I can sense how you two work together, how you collaborate, and how I'm sure it's all going to come together once the actors come into play. Like you say, you get to have their interpretation and their understanding of the story that's been presented. Um, and I think that collaboration is so tight that for my last question, I would love to have it be a conversation with you both. So whoever, feels the inspiration to speak first, go for it, go back and forth. But on the 12th, when the play goes live, what are you hoping you get from the audience? What do you hope the audience response will be for this show?
Well, that's a big question. Um, I think they will be considering or wondering, what price success. His Lawrence goes to the very end, and not meaning to, but by accident, you might say, someone dies, and he has to consider whether, is it worth it? I mean, I sort of indirectly brought about a death and of someone I loved at one time. And I'll never forget that. I'm going to be famous now, but I'm going to have to carry that with me. And the moral question there, because his new girlfriend, whom he's in love with and has proposed to now that he thinks he's a made man, when she finds out what he's done, not only in betraying her with the previous woman whom he had to go to bed with to get the release, okay? So he's gone to bed with her to get the release from, oh, sorry, that's a spoiler, isn't it? Oh dear. Well, yeah, I forgot about that. Anyway, there's a moral question there of is it, are there some things you simply cannot do? You must not do.
Yeah.
I might spoil the whole thing.
Yeah, I've been
She said
reading
you're
it and
excited.
I've been saying, don't give it all away.
Well, they won't know what I'm talking about until they see it. So,
Well,
maybe.
Alisa, maybe from your end, what do you hope the audience gets from this
I
show?
I I hope that the audience gets what I always hope that the audience gets. I hope that they are emotionally drawn into the play. I hope that they find the that they're clear, or they have some sense at the end as to the moral issues, the ethical issues that are raised. That they question their own, um, what they question their own ethical center, moral
Mm.
center. How would they react? How would they behave? I think one of the things that I love about theater is that if it works, it asks people to engage in the questions that are asked by the play. And that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah,
And I hope that no, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Alisa.
No, it's okay.
What I was going to say was that what I'm hoping is that the audience is in shock, is in a kind of aesthetic arrest, where you're just kind of like that the climax, what happens in the last scene, um, brings up, I won't say what it is, but it brings up something that's very, very deeply true that we all know, but we've forgotten that we know it. And now momentarily we're in that knowing again. And we're just sort of sitting there saying, yes, that's what it is, right? As opposed to, Joyce made the three kinds of art: didactic, which is political, which is hating something, and erotic, which is loving something, wanting something, and then aesthetic arrest, where you're just kind of like, yes, that's it. That's what it is. So I'm hoping for that, if
You
that makes.
both have thoroughly hyped up this show. You've done a very smart branding technique. If folks want the answers of what happens in this show, you already know. It is at 1 East 29th Street, 8 p.m., March 12th, Tuesday. We've got Release. Again, tickets are free. Donations are always accepted. And if you want to learn more, you can go to egoactus.com. Both of you, thank you so, so much for your time. I wish you the very best with this show. No spoilers around here. And congratulations. I hope
Thank
it
you
all
so much,
goes well.
Laura. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Indeed, indeed.
Thank you very much.